The sun rose over the small, quiet village of Onuka, casting long shadows across the dusty roads and modest homes. Among these houses was a weather-beaten structure that had once been vibrant but now seemed to shrink away from the light. Inside lived a family whose story was hidden in whispers and silence, a family bound by fear and pain. ADAORA, a young woman in her late 20s, moved through the house with a quiet efficiency, her eyes downcast, her movements measured. She had learned long ago that silence was her best shield. Her husband, Chike, was a man with a temper as unpredictable as the winds that blew through the village. What had begun as a love story had devolved into a nightmare of control and violence. Each morning, ADAORA rose before dawn to prepare the day's meals, ensure the house was spotless, and tend to their young daughter, Ifeoma. The child, barely 5 years old, had grown up too fast, her innocence shadowed by the dark moods of her father. Chike's rage was a storm that brewed from small, everyday frustrations. A misplaced cup, a forgotten chore, or even the way ADAORA spoke could ignite his fury. His violence was methodical, a punishment delivered with the precision of a man who believed in his right to dominate. And so, ADAORA bore the bruises and the scars, both visible and hidden, with a stoicism that had become second nature. Despite the heavy atmosphere of their home, ADAORA clung to hope. Her solace came in the form of a community women's group that met secretly in the village church. Here, she found a network of support, women who, like her, had suffered but refused to let their spirits be broken. Mama Nkechi, the group's matriarch, was a woman of formidable presence and gentle wisdom. She had experienced her own share of pain but had emerged as a beacon of strength for others. Under her guidance, the women learned about their rights, shared their stories, and found ways to support one another. ADAORA, though timid at first, began to find her voice within this circle. One day, Mama Nkechi took ADAORA aside. "My child," she said, her voice soft yet firm, "no woman deserves to live in fear. You are stronger than you believe, and there is a way out. But it begins with a choice to reclaim your life." ADAORA's eyes filled with tears. The thought of leaving Chike terrified her, but the idea of staying was a slow death. She looked at Ifeoma, playing nearby, and knew she had to be brave not just for herself but for her daughter's future. The breaking point came one evening when Chike, in a drunken rage, turned his anger on Ifeoma. ADAORA's protective instincts surged, and for the first time, she stood up to him, shielding her daughter from his blows. Chike's surprise at her defiance turned into a blind fury, and he lashed out with more force. That night, ADAORA made her decision. With the help of the women's group, she planned her escape. Mama Nkechi provided a safe place for ADAORA and Ifeoma, while the other women ensured that their departure would be unnoticed by Chike. Under the cover of darkness, ADAORA and Ifeoma slipped out of the house, carrying nothing but a small bag of essentials and the hope for a better life. They moved quickly, their hearts pounding, until they reached the sanctuary of Mama Nkechi's home. The days that followed were a mix of relief and fear. ADAORA knew Chike would be furious when he discovered their absence, but she also felt a newfound freedom that gave her strength. With the support of the women's group, she began to rebuild her life. She found work at a local market, earning enough to support herself and Ifeoma. The simple act of earning her own money was empowering, and each day she grew more confident. Ifeoma, too, flourished in the safe environment, her laughter returning as the shadows lifted from her young heart. ADAORA also sought legal help, learning about her rights and the protections available to victims of domestic violence. With the support of a local advocacy group, she filed for a restraining order against Chike and began the process of divorce, a bold step that many in the village saw as radical. The news of ADAORA's actions spread through Onuka like wildfire. In a community where tradition often dictated silence on such matters, her defiance was both shocking and inspiring. Some villagers criticized her, believing she was breaking the sacred bonds of marriage. Others, especially women who had suffered in silence, saw her as a symbol of hope. Maman Kechi and the women's group continued to rally around ADAORA, organizing awareness campaigns and workshops on domestic violence. They worked to change the narrative, to show that leaving an abusive relationship was not a failure but a courageous act of survival. Chike, meanwhile, tried to rally support against ADAORA, painting himself as a victim of betrayal. But the tides were turning. The village began to see through his facade, and many distanced themselves from him, unwilling to condone his actions. Months turned into a year, and ADAORA'S life transformed. She and Ifeoma moved into a small but comfortable house, a place they could truly call home. ADAORA continued her work, now helping other women who found themselves in similar situations. Her story became a beacon of hope, showing that it was possible to escape the cycle of abuse and build a new life. Chike, facing legal consequences and the loss of his family, eventually left the village. His departure marked a turning point for Onuka, as the community began to openly address the issue of domestic violence, breaking the cycle of silence that had once prevailed. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed the story so far, please drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell notification to get more updates. Thank you.